So you're probably wondering why I have barely any clothes on and why I'm sitting on what looks like an inflatable cushion in some sort of potty situation. That's because this is what your life is going to look like probably for the first few weeks after you have your baby. Everything that I'm about to walk through and show you, even if it looks a little crazy, is actually going to help support your healing process. So let's go through some of the bodily sensations that you might experience in those first few weeks postpartum and the things that can help. Starting off with things that can help your vulva and your vagina, which have just been through a really intense event. Now, right here, I'm sitting on an inflatable donut cushion. I love donut cushions. I have for years. And when I would go to people's homes and provide postpartum support, it was one of the first things I always made sure they had after birth. And the reason for that is donut cushions, as you can see, help to evenly distribute the pressure of sitting all around your buttocks or your butt, as opposed to the pressure all being loaded on your vulva and on your vagina. Because after pushing out a baby, if you had a vaginal birth, there's a lot of tension and pain in that area, especially in the first couple of days. So a donut cushion will be helpful probably for the first week or so. If you had pretty deep tearing, your donut cushion could be your friend for a couple of months. It's great to put right over the toilet seat when you're peeing or pooping, or as you move around the house and you're sitting on a couch, or even when you start driving again, you could slide the donut cushion into your car. Just make sure you adjust your seating so that it doesn't create any issues while you drive. Now, I'm going to whip out my donut cushion, and I'm going to show you what else I was sitting on. A Sitz bath. Now, you might be saying, why is she holding a bedpan? This is not a bedpan. This is actually a Sitz bath. A Sitz bath is something that you can use to irrigate, clean, and heal your vulva and your perineum after birth. And the reason why you would want to do that is during crowning, which is when your baby's head is emerging from the vagina if you had a vaginal birth, whether you tear or not, that area has undergone stress. And resting it in warm water can really help speed up the healing process. Now, the Sitz bath actually would live inside of your toilet. And then you would put the donut cushion on top of the Sitz bath and then put your bottom on the cushion. Now, when you're sitting on the cushion, the other thing I didn't mention, beyond the fact that it helps to distribute the pressure evenly and take it off your vulva, it also takes the pressure off of your perineum, which is pretty sensitive as well. So, before I move on, I want to talk a little bit more about peeing and pooping after birth. Enter the Peri bottle. I'm going to pop back on the donut cushion and the Sitz bath to show you how this can help you with peeing and pooping after having your baby. Sitting on my Sitz bath, which we would imagine is inside of my toilet, or as my mom would say, your commode, you'll grab your Peri bottle. You'd fill this Peri bottle with water, warm water ideally, and maybe even a drop or two of lavender. That can be helpful too. And you take the Peri bottle and actually place it into the bowl of the toilet or the Sitz bath. The Sitz bath is able to drain into your toilet, by the way. And you'll spray that over your vulva and maybe even a little bit into your vagina. And you actually will do that while you pee. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would you do that while you pee? Well, for two reasons. After birth, the area around the vulva and the vagina has gone through friction, which might leave open skin. And your pee has a combination of sodium and uric acid that can sting when it touches any open skin. So those first few times of peeing after birth, having a little bit of water running over your vulva and around your vagina as you pee is going to make that peeing experience be less painful. So your Peri bottle can really live in your bathroom for as long as you need it, but definitely for those first few days. And if you're birthing at a birth center or hospital, you'll be shown how to use one of these before you're discharged. And you'll probably use it a few times before you even leave. Now, when it comes to pooping, I still feel like a Peri bottle is really helpful because sometimes just the actual act of pooping can feel really intense. So having some warm water run over your anus as you start to relax into pooping can make it feel a lot safer, especially because the first poop after giving birth can feel very intense because it's using the same muscles that you used to push. And so anything that can help support that process can be incredibly helpful. The other thing that can be really supportive for pooping is counter pressure. And counter pressure can be provided by you using your hands underneath your buttocks and sitting back down on your hands. Now, again, you might be asking yourself, why is she doing that? And the reason for that is sometimes after birth, especially if you've had a cesarean birth, you can suffer from a bit of constipation. And that constipation can be twofold. If you've had a cesarean birth, there can be a slowdown in your digestive tract as your body repairs from surgery. But on the other hand, even if you had a medicated or unmedicated vaginal delivery, there can be a slowdown in digestion. And sometimes you haven't eaten for long periods of time, which can also slow down your digestion. So applying counter pressure with your hands as you try to bear down and push out poop can make it a lot easier than just sitting on your toilet without any counter pressure or support pushing up towards your rectum and towards your bowels. Another thing that could be really helpful as well if you're super constipated, which can happen especially after a cesarean birth because of the medication that you're given to manage your pain, you can place Aquaphor, coconut oil, or even nipple cream right around your anus and maybe a little bit inside of your rectum in order to help make the pooping process more comfortable and hopefully less painful. Inside of the Sitz bath, you can also put a Sitz bath solution, which you can make yourself, and we have a recipe to do that in the guide that goes along with this module for this class. A Sitz bath mixture is essentially a tea that you can place into the physical Sitz bath to rest your perineum and vulva and vagina in for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes for a few days after delivery. This is especially helpful because you're not able to take a bath in the first few days after having a baby. Showers are recommended until a little bit more of the healing process has happened. So the Sitz bath really is your friend. Another thing that you can do for your perineum ahead of time, before even having your baby, is to make ice pads that have some therapeutic and pain relieving benefits. Using an already made Sitz bath like this one, you can saturate a maxi pad in water, and then once it's saturated, spray over a Sitz bath mixture. It smells so good. Honestly, it really does. And then, taking some parchment paper, place the pad on the parchment paper, roll up the pad, and then roll it up in the parchment paper. And pop it into your freezer. I would say to do about 10 of those. That should get you through the first couple of days, which is when you really need that cold therapy in that area. The other thing that you're going to need are lots and lots of maxi pads. You can either use disposable pads or you can use reusable pads. You also could use reusable underwear that absorbs a lot of fluids. And the reason for that is you're going to experience something called lochia, which is the release of the remainder of the uterine lining that was in your uterus while you were pregnant. It continues to leave your body for the first few weeks postpartum. At first, it'll be small to medium-sized clots of blood in a dark red color gently fading to a lighter red color to pink, eventually to brown, and eventually to yellow. You definitely don't want to see clots larger than the size of a cherry tomato. If you do see clots that are larger than that size, you definitely want to let your care provider know. You might also notice that your lochia will pick up when you're feeding your baby, especially if you're breastfeeding or pumping. And the reason for that is pumping and breastfeeding releases oxytocin in the body, which then causes your uterus to contract and release more of the uterine lining. And that leads me to talk about uterine cramping, which is also very normal in the first few days postpartum, as your uterus continues to involute and get smaller and smaller, going back to a size close to what it was before you were ever pregnant. Now, something else that is here that can help with uterine cramping is belly binding or creating compression in your abdominal area. Now, you might be asking, why would I want to have compression in my abdominal area? Compression in the abdominal area is going to help you feel more collected. And you'd want to feel more collected because over the past 9 months, as your uterus has stretched and your baby has grown, all of the abdominal organs moved out of the way to make space for your baby and for your stretching uterus. So after birth, a lot of women have something called a pooch, and they also feel like their body doesn't have everything in the right place. So using compression to help you feel collected has nothing to do with getting your body back and everything to do to help you feel more organized and collected and strong. And it's going to make it easier for you to pick up your baby. It'll make it easier for you to breastfeed or body feed, and it'll just make it easier for you to walk around and do things feeling more normal in your body. Now, keep in mind, feeling more collected and more organized and strong doesn't mean that you start doing all the things that you used to. It's really mostly about finding comfort so that you can have enough support in your body to nourish yourself and nourish your baby. So let's talk about using a belly binder. Now, one of my favorite things, and by the way, these are actually mesh panties, which we'll be spending a lot of time in. And I love mesh panties because they're super breathable and make space for all the pads and all the different things that you'll be using to help support yourself. Now, one of my favorite things that I used to do when I would go and provide postpartum support as a postpartum doula was helping new moms get into a belly band. Now, you'll notice as I'm putting it on, I'm stretching it pretty tight over my abdomen. And notice that I'm taking it kind of right here from right underneath my rib cage, which is where the top of your fundus was, and the top of your fundus is the top of your uterus, right down to my bikini line, which is basically the full expanse of where your uterus and your baby used to be. Now, when you're using a belly band, honestly, getting someone else to help you get into it is ideal because they'll really be able to get it on you nice and tight. You also don't even have to do the belly band standing up. You can do it lying down. And actually, that's a really great way to get it on in a comfortable and well-positioned manner. Now, when it comes to wearing a belly band, you can actually have it on for as many hours as feels comfortable to you during the day. Some moms actually wear their belly band while they sleep. There's actually no problem with it. Just make sure that you're keeping it clean, because one of the other things that you're going to be doing all the time now is feeding. And whether you're feeding your baby with human milk from your body or formula from a bottle, there will be dribbles. So just make sure to keep your belly band nice and clean. So the last thing I want to dip into is to talk about breast care. So what I'm wearing here is actually a nursing bra. Nursing bras sometimes will have special straps on them that allow you to actually release down and expose your nipple and areola for your baby to have access to. But even if they don't have special straps, what most nursing bras or breastfeeding bras do, they have space for other things to easily go inside of them. So let's talk about what that could look like. What I have here are breast pads. Should you choose to breastfeed or body feed, you'll need something like this. These breast pads are going to help absorb any milk that's going to be released from your breast when you're not feeding. And yes, as your milk volume increases, your breasts will leak. So having something like this is really important. And they quite easily fit inside of your bra. And just so that you have context on what I'm doing when I'm placing the breast pad inside of my bra, is the breast pad goes right over the nipple and creates compression, which actually helps to stop your breast from leaking. And then for whatever does actually leak out, the fabric on the inside of the breast pad can absorb it. Another thing that's really helpful, especially in the first few days postpartum, as your breasts go through something called engorgement, meaning the breasts fill up with that initial increase in milk volume, is going to be something like this. These are called buoy tubes, and buoy tubes are something that you could heat up in the microwave or cool in the freezer and actually place over the breast, like that, inside of your bra. And what that's really going to do is help support engorgement and help reduce the discomfort that you might be feeling as your breasts start to fill up with more milk. And what I love about these buoy tubes is that they can be used warm or cold. You'll be switching between hot and cold therapy as you manage engorgement. What I would recommend for you to do is to use hot therapy to warm the breast before a feed, and then cold therapy after a feed to help with any discomfort that might be there post the feed. Another thing that could be helpful is something called TheraShells. TheraShells, or nipple everters, can help by being placed over the nipple. And what happens is this helps create pressure to evert the nipple and bring it out, but you'll also notice the holes on this TheraShell. And what's happening here is it allows air to flow in and over the skin of the nipple to help promote rapid healing. And you might be wondering, why would there need to be rapid healing happening at my nipples? Well, when you do start breastfeeding or body feeding for the first time, there can be some nipple sensitivity, even if your baby has a good latch. Or if your baby's struggling with their latch initially, if your nipples do come under some fire, something like the TheraShells can help support the healing process. And last but not least, there are cabbage leaves. Some of you might have heard that you can use cabbage leaves to support the early part of your breastfeeding or body feeding process. And that actually is true. But I want to share two things to keep in mind. What's happening when you're using cabbage is once the cabbage leaf is crushed, it releases sulfuric properties that can help reduce engorgement. But the cabbage leaves need to be changed at least every 2 hours. And be careful with how much you use it, because sometimes it can overdo the job. So using cabbage might be really helpful in the first 7 days after birth, which is when engorgement is usually at its height. As I said, the cabbage becomes helpful after crushing it, and you can place it inside of your bra right onto the skin, but make sure to take out your breast pad first. I just shared a lot of information. Hopefully, most of it, if not all of it, is really helpful. There's more information about everything you see here in the guide that goes along with the module for this class. The final thing I want to share with you is to be gentle and kind to yourself in this early postpartum phase. There is so much going on, and it can be really easy to feel overwhelmed and think that you can't cope with everything that's coming forward for you and for your baby. But I'm here to tell you that you can. And I'm also here to tell you that it's important to try and find those little moments of joy where they show up, and also try and have a little laugh about it, because you are not alone. So many other women are going through the same thing that you are. And hopefully everything that I just shared helps you be more prepared for this collective, crazy, but amazing experience that you're about to go through.